a car so iconic, so timeless, it doesn't need an introduction. No matter what era you look at, it has always embodied tradition and set the benchmark for all performance cars to come. It's the Porsche 911. Porsche already had a massive success on their hands when they released the 356. However, no one could deny by the 1960s it was showing its age. Okay, fair enough, it was showing its age. So they designed a replacement that was going to be bigger, more comfortable, and most importantly of all, more powerful than the 356. And it was called the 901, and it was a brilliant machine released in 1963, and it enjoyed all of 5 minutes of production before Peugeot stepped in with their French accent and said, "You must be joking. You cannot have a zero in the middle of the name that is reserved fully for us based on French law. So you must change the name 901, you see, because it breaks French law," he said in his terrible French accent, which means 82 901s were ever sold before Porsche changed the name to 911. That's literally the only reason the 911 moniker is used. Yeah, good job, Peugeot. But that did not stop Porsche from improving on the 356 in every way. It comfortably sat a family of 4 with its 2+2 seating, and the rear engine, flat 6, which is 2 cylinders bigger, by the way, than the 356 engine, boosted the power up to 130 horsepower. Now, they did make a 4-cylinder version called the 912, but no one really cared about that. What people really wanted was a more powerful 911, obviously. So they called it, because they're German, the Porsche 911S for sport. And it was the same car pretty much, very similar suspension, very similar interior. Only difference is it had 30 more horsepower. Not bad. Now, in 1967, they were going to make a convertible version of it. But then some rumors started spreading that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration over here in America land was going to up the requirements for rollovers. And that would make, convertibles a little difficult to sell. So they designed the Targa, which is a stiffer, yet convertible-ish experience, while not having the problem of rolling over. And it was pretty darn good. But not as good as their next 911 in 1973. Because that's when they unveiled the Carrera RS. It has one of the sickest paint jobs ever put on a road car in the 70s. It's freaking awesome. It was developed to meet racing homologation requirements, and only 1,600 of them were made. And of those 1,600, only 49 of them used the 2.8-liter flat 6 engine, which can make, in road trim, 300 horsepower in a car weighing just over 2,000 pounds. That's ridiculous. And since it was for motorsports, and Porsche know a thing or two about motorsports, they entered the RSR version of it into the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1974, and it finished second overall. That's not bad for a Grand Tour. But the 911 generation was showing its age, so they upped it to the 930 generation, which is a 911 but with an internal code number. It's complicated, okay? This was introduced in 1975, and it was the first turbocharged 911, which means the power was upped, on the base models anyway, to 260 horsepower. And by 1978, that was bumped up to 300. And it was, again, another racing-inspired car. Because all 911s are racing-inspired cars. They've been racing since the dawn of time. In the Monte Carlo Rally, then in Le Mans, and then with the 930 in FIA Group 4 regulations for the 934. Which was, pretty darn good. But if you wanted the ultimate 930 race car, you had to go one level up to Group 5. Group 5 is a super silhouette series, and Porsche offered the 935 as a factory team and a privateer team. The privateer versions made 600 horsepower. And then by 1978, Porsche realized, hey, we're losing to our own privateer teams. That's not right. So, the absolute madmen at Stuttgart made the ultimate 935. Nicknamed Moby Dick, this flat 6 engine was completely revamped from the ground up to make 845 horsepower. The most powerful 911 ever made up to this point. But that's not just it. The body was lowered by 10 centimeters. The weight was lowered to under 2,000 pounds. And it was completely reworked to be more aerodynamic and better through the corners. The result was a top speed of 228 miles an hour. And around Silverstone, it was 7 seconds slower than the Formula 1 cars of the era. That's insane! To be only 7 seconds slower than a Formula 1 car. And to show how fast it is, it was entered in the lower class. The class behind the prototypes in Le Mans in 1979. And it frickin' won outright, beating the fully fledged prototypes. Now that also led to the destruction of the Group 5 series, but that's a thing for another day. And if you wanted the most bizarre 911 of this generation, you had to go with the 953, because after their success in Le Mans, with basically a stripped out Mad Men road car, they decided, what if we tackle this rally thing? Now, before they went fully fledged into the new Group B rules, they wanted to see if they had what it took. So, they went, obviously, to the next choice, the Dakar. And they entered a 4-wheel drive, lifted, stiffened up 911 into the Dakar Rally in 1983. And it kind of fared okay. And by okay, I mean the 300 horsepower, flat 6, won the Dakar Rally on his first try in 1984. I know I said 1983, but whatever, it's 1984, okay? Just like the novel. That's not bad. Entering one Dakar Rally and then winning it with a sports car must have been pretty embarrassing for the Land Rovers, I will be honest. But the immense success of the 930 gave way to the 964. And a full refresh in 1989. Style was completely reworked, and the road cars finally got that goody 4-wheel drive goodness, and the power was up to 355. So we had all-wheel drive, new styling, and a 355 horsepower flat 6 that is still air-cooled. How is this even possible? To be honest, no one knows. The wizards at Stuttgart are absolute madmen. And still, Porsche wanted more. In 1994, they threw out that 964 and threw in the 993. Don't ask me why they did the 993 when it was the 964, whatever. And because they're German, they like to give percentages. And this new 911 was 80% new. Not 81, not 79, 80% new. And The Turbo S model made 450 horsepower with air-cooled engines. Water-cooled V12s with half the cylinders were making 380 at that era, and this is 450. And that wasn't even the maddest version. If you wanted the truly insane of the 1995 generation, you had to get a GT2. What is a GT2? Only the maddest 993 ever devised. It's got a massive body kit, a massiver wing, and a lighter weight. 443 horsepower, 2,800 pounds to be precise. But if you wanted it, you had to order it fast because only 55 were ever made. So they're even more rare than the 901. But the 996 was not destined to stick around just because of its Le Mans success and its brand new development process. No, because the 997, finally something in order, was released, and it's one of the longest running generations, running all the way up till 2012. And it was 41 pounds lighter than the 996, and it introduced Porsche's ceramic composite brake system, which not only reduced brake fade, but also reduced brake weight, which means better brakes, which means you slow down faster, which means you can brake later. It's science. And by 2012, the Turbo S was now a fully fledged supercar. 4-wheel drive, 550 horsepower. Did the quarter mile in 10.8 seconds. That's Pagani territory. And, well, like every Porsche, there is a few collector's editions. Probably coolest looking of all, the Sport Classic Limited Edition. Only 250 were made. They cost $190,000. They were homage to the Carrera RS I mentioned earlier. They're freaking nuts. And they sold out in 48 hours. So it's a little tough to get one these days. Now, I said the 997 lasted till 2012, and then it was discontinued in favor of the 991. Someone needs to go down to Germany and tell them how to count right, goddammit. And this one is one of the more recent, because they got a brand spanking new platform designed from the ground up, which means it was bigger. But don't think that it was slower, because this is one of the most technologically advanced Porsches you can physically buy. The Turbo S did 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. And it has active aero, and it has 4-wheel steering, and it has a top speed of 198 miles an hour. They also brought back the GT3 RS, which has a naturally aspirated flat 6, making 520 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. 520 horsepower without a turbocharger in sight, in a flat 6 with 4 liters. I don't know what magic Germany has, but I want some of it. But if the GT3 is not crazy enough for you, there's the GT2 RS, which is even lighter with magnesium, carbon fiber, and aluminum bits everywhere on that car. The 700 horsepower twin turbocharged flat 6 could do a 6-minute and 47-second Nürburgring lap, which was a record at the time and still the fastest rear-wheel drive car at the ring, beaten only by the 4-wheel drive Lamborghini Aventador SVJ. And if we're playing nitpicky here, the MR tuned version, basically a Roush equivalent of a Porsche tuner, could do a 6-minute 40 dead around the Nürburgring, which is only 29 seconds slower than the 962 Le Mans car in a road car. That's boggling the mind. And they did make a special edition, as per usual, but this one was a bit special. Not because of the fact that it was limited to 991 units, or because it had a special paint job, but because collectors thought this thing would be so valuable in the later years that they jacked the prices up at auctions to over $1 million a car. And this car was made in 2019. That's stupid. I don't understand collectors. It's not that valuable. It looks cool, but it's not. It's basically the same car, but with a cool paint job. And it's worth $1 million now, so there you go. Which moves us on to the current generation 911, called the 992. This was just introduced a few months ago, actually, and it uses all aluminum panels to save weight. And truth be told, we don't know too much about it right now, because they haven't released all the special editions for this generation yet. It's still going on. But what I can tell you is there's four-wheel steering, active aerodynamics, four-wheel drive, the whole shebang, and it's still rear-engined. And it's still one of the greatest cars you can buy right now. But 2019 is exactly 40 years off of the 1979 Le Mans win for the 911 with the 935. So, Porsche decided to celebrate and made a monster called the 935. They're not very original, we'll be honest. This 30-year anniversary vehicle is basically a GT2 RS, but designed for racing. Not for any particular motorsport, no. Just as a homage, it's got a massive body kit with a massive wing, just like the original 935. It has a full racing roll cage, fire extinguishers, and hydraulic tire jacks allowing you to change the tires. Only 77 of them were ever made at $800,000 a pop. You gotta have some big wallets in order to afford that car these days. To show you how good the 911 is, if you exclude its racing victories, if you exclude the fact that it's a family car, a sports car, a supercar, a track toy, you name it, it isn't. If you exclude all of that, in 1999, a group of 370 automotive journalists from around the world voted the 5 best cars of the century. First place, Ford Model T. Second place, Citroen DS. Third place, Beetle, other way around. Fourth place, I forget now. It's not that special. Fifth place, Porsche 911. The Porsche 911 was the 5th most important car of the century. It was the only other sports car on that list besides the AC Cobra and the Chevrolet Corvette. That speaks volumes to just how good it is. And despite its rear-engine layout, despite their inability, their desire to keep things as traditional and yet as high-tech as they possibly can, it's the best car there is. And people can say Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Corvettes and all these things are better, but if you look through history, there has never been a boring 911. There has never been that one year that no one likes. Every year has been art, speed, innovation, and tradition, all molded together to make one perfect car.